Welcome to Hot Hero Sandwich with Kareen Abdul-Jabbar, Dawber, Robert Guillaume, and Michael Learned. In conversation with Tom Cox.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, let's begin a little bit by finding out where you grew up and something about your family as well.
Well, I was born in Sydenham Hospital on St. Nicholas Avenue and 124th Street. And at the time, we were living at 111th Street and 7th Avenue in Harlem.
Livonia, Michigan, I guess, is where I had the early part of my childhood, from probably about 2 years old till I was, 9, 10, something like that.
Who's in the family?
Well, my father and my mother and myself. I'm an only child. I've always lived in a small family.
I had a sister who was 2.5 years younger than me, and then my mother and father.
I had a brother and 2 sisters, and my brother lives in California. My 2 sisters still live in St. Louis, and I grew up with my grandmother, and my mother wasn't around that much, but my grandmother sort of kept us together.
There was a mother and a father, and how many children were there?
6 girls, and I was the oldest, and we lived on a farm in Connecticut. We had 21 acres, and it was not a working farm in the sense that we didn't earn our living from the farm. But we had a cow, which we shared with another family, so we had our own milk, and we had chickens, and we had our own eggs, and
a goat somewhere.
And goats, which I took care of. And nobody ever wanted to sit next to me at school. But then my mother did a lovely thing. She invited the class to the farm and for a picnic. And somehow when they saw where I lived and what I did, it turned things around a little bit. It was very nice.
The children changed their feelings about you?
Yeah.
When you were small, Kareem, did you have any particular feelings about your father, both as a man and in terms of what he did for a living?
Well, I thought he was the greatest, because he got a lot of respect from the other men in the neighborhood because of the fact that he was a policeman and the fact that he was 6'3" and he used to box and just a very good physical specimen. So I was very proud of him as my father, and I think I felt a lot of reflected respect that he got.
He's like Peter Pan in a way. My father is he made life such a fantasy. We believed in everything. We believed in Santa Claus and the Good Fairy and everything. He would, for Easter, we would always leave out a little bowl of milk for the Easter bunny and a carrot. And he would go outside and get dirt and rub his 3 fingers in dirt. And we had glass-top tables like this, and he would make prints all over the glass-top tables if the rabbit had walked all over the table, and then he would flick the milk with his finger like this so it looked like the rabbit had lapped it, so there'd be little splashes of milk around, and then he would make the carrot all gnawed at. So I had kids that didn't believe in Easter Bunny over at my house and saying, look, there is an Easter Bunny, and having these kids believing in it all over again.
Well, my parents are very unique people, really, and my father always stressed being different. I was very much of a conformist. I loved white bread, Wonder Bread, and bologna, and the milk at school. I didn't like the milk we drank on the farm. I was sort of... And my father always stressed that there's a whole other world out there. And, in fact, he took us to Europe when I was 12, so that we lived in Europe for a while. But I found that I really wanted to be like the other kids. I didn't want to be different at that age.
We were talking about the racial differences that you become aware of. And what happened was this guy brought in a Polaroid camera, and they took a picture of the class, okay? And it was developed. And I looked at all the faces, and I looked for my face, of course. My face is darker than everybody's. And wow, that is a fact, because for a while there were only like 2 or 3 black kids in my grammar school, which was possibly 800 kids. there were only, you know, 2 or 3 black kids. And I was always the only one in my class up until like the 5th grade. And things like that started to become delineated. And by the time I got to the 7th grade, started hearing the word nigger and being very acutely aware of racial differences.
Well, when I was around 13 to 14, then I became aware of certain doors. I became aware that certain doors might be closed to me, not only because of this earlier thing of being a bastard and being poor and all that, but more importantly because I was black. I've always been trying to account for why none of that, which was really very hard, and some of it was very humiliating and degrading. I'm trying to figure out why none of it ever stopped me. Now, I think maybe, I don't know the reason why, really, except that I know that I had an attitude. You know, I feel that if you do something to me, I feel that I have the right to retaliate without fear that you're going to hold it against my race. And because I remember when I was younger, too, it was also considered that black people were supposed to think, gee, we got to make them like us. They've got to like us at all costs, because if they don't like us, I mean, who knows what could happen, you know. And I really could never subscribe to that, because I can never guarantee that anyway.
I lived in Europe for a while. I felt different there because I was an American living in Europe. And when I was in this country, I was sort of brought up the way a European child would have been brought up, so that I felt that I didn't quite belong here. And I never knew quite, and I would always try to adjust myself to fit in wherever I happened to be. Mm-hmm. And that's a mistake.
What was the self-image that Pam Dawber had?
My friends then were my life. You know, they cared about me and I cared about them, and they liked me. So I think it was really just not liking myself, but not really knowing it. Not having any idea who I was, because I was so busy trying to do things so other people would like me that I was never really sure what Pam was about. I didn't have a strong self-image. It was like I was always looking outside myself in to see, you know, was I dressed right? Was I acting right? Did I look well?
To me, my height has always been a mark of distinction, and everyone has always expected me to be tall. As I was growing up, I would hear conversations to the fact that my grandfather was tall. Both of my grandfathers were tall. My parents were tall. I was expected to be tall. And I just really related to it in a very positive way. I thought it was great. And I developed a lot of positive identifications with tall objects, tall distinctive objects, like the Empire State Building and the Redwoods.
You know, there are quite a few things that I thought I could do, and I remember thinking, nobody knows that I'm as multi-talented as I do. I remember feeling like, you know, I'm the only one that knows these things. And I remember one of my things I would do, I used to have a little fantasy thing where I'd put on musicals when my parents weren't home. And I would act things out and sing things to myself. And I used to get into Funny Girl, and I would sing, I'm the greatest star and no one knows it. To myself, it was like total frustration.
Can you think of an experience of childhood where when you think about it, you really kind of smile or giggle?
Yes, but I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going to tell me that?
Hot Hero Sandwich will return after these messages. We now return to Hot Hero Sandwich.
The idea of being a tomboy often suggests that there are things that boys are allowed to do which girls are not supposed to do. Did you ever have that kind of pressure?
No, I guess not. I guess not. I played with dolls to a certain extent. I like to play all the things girls played. Teacher. I always like to play teacher. And We used to play circus on the swing set. We had a whole little act worked out on the swing set where there was a man who was a trapeze artist named Rex. One of the girls would play Rex. Rex. And it's so funny because you don't really think of these things. That really is funny. And then we'd get into this thing where the lion would be chasing us and Rex would save us.
I was very sensitive at any kind of I hated bullies and any kind of inhumane, anything I thought was inhumane. I still am. I can't stand it if I see somebody, unless I'm the one who's being the bully, but I can't stand to see anybody being bullied.
There was a guy in my building named Joe Wilson, and he had just moved into the building, and I guess he decided that we were going to fight. It was when I'd come home from church on a Sunday, and I was outside playing, and we got into a fight, and he could really fight. You know, I couldn't fight that well. And I went upstairs crying to my father, and he said he couldn't help me. I either had to go out and fight him or stay upstairs. And that was it. You know, I was either grounded or I had to go out and fight. So I went out and fought him and got beat again. And I came back crying, and my father told me the same story. And I had to go back out there and fight him again.
Oh, this is the third time you went?
I went out there 4 times. One time I took a stick and chased him. But actually, it was good for me to do that because after that, Joe didn't want to fight me anymore because he thought I was crazy. I was one of those type of persons that kept getting licked, but kept coming back.
Hot Hero Sandwich will return after these messages. We now return to Hot Hero Sandwich.
Now let's talk a little bit about little Robert Guillaume finding girls. Do you remember some of those early first encounters with girls?
Oh, I think yeah. Now it comes back to me a little. I had 2 or 3 heavy girlfriends when I don't know, 7th or 8th grade or something like that. One was named Gladys. One was named Goldie, and one was named Kathleen, and they were all very pretty girls. But they were, you know, like not all at the same time. They were different girls at different times. I remember my sister Cleo used to get girls for me. She used to, like I would say to her, I would say, "Hey, tell that girl over there I like her." I would say that on recess, you know, "Tell that girl over there I like her," and so my sister would go over and tell the girl, and then she would bring back the most exquisite information. "She likes you too."
Well, I always had lots of crushes on different people. I mean, I had 2 guys in high school I was always working on, you know, that I would go out with occasionally, but then there would be other guys I would go with. We didn't have a real big dating high school. It was mostly big groups of kids. There were people that had steadies. I was never one that really had steadies for any length of time. I dated one guy in high school that I was just crazy about, who was a year older than me, who was a senior boy, and I was a junior girl. And he had another girlfriend that was always, you know, I was a junior girl and she was a senior girl, and so there was always that, you know, Tom's out with the junior girls, you know, and so there was always like this little thing between the 2 classes.
Do you remember a first date or early dates?
Yeah, but that didn't happen until I was in high school.
Can you tell me?
I was very shy, and because I did not have any money and I couldn't dress in the spiffiest way that it was possible for people to dress in that time because of my height. You know, it was very hard for me to get clothes. I needed custom-made clothes at the time. I just really kind of like forgot about it and had these fantasies and just lived in a fantasy world, more or less.
You were really overcome with emotion.
As a child?
A lot of times.
I think I was overcome because I didn't express them. I think I was overwhelmed because I didn't really express them except by crying. That's how I expressed them.
Could someone have entered your life in a way outside of a parent? Could have, the teacher, and the 3rd grade teacher was somebody that mattered to you in giving love, but could someone have entered, or do you just have to work these things out?
I think you have to work them out. I think when I look back, there were a lot of people who came into my life as a young adult and as an adult There were a lot of awful people too, but there were a lot of people who've really helped me along the way. And I think if you can just recognize, here's someone who's for me, and go for that, you know, there are a lot of good Samaritans that have helped me out in my life. And I'm grateful to them. And sometimes I didn't know when it was happening, you know, but when I look back. And sometimes it's just somebody holding out a hand, or somebody saying you're okay, or you're going to be okay, or somebody smiling in the street when you're depressed. People, I think people are, I'm going to start crying, I think people are really great.